So I'm really exhausted. But I thought I should share this before it kind of too much time passes and I don't get to document it. So this oracle here had been calling me out for a while on this certain thing, and I just didn't get it. I just did not get it, but now I get it. It kept saying affected health, and what would happen is, like, every few days or so, I would just be like, I wonder what I should be focused on. And then I would just consult this oracle bucket. And for a while, it kept having me focus on this certain particular other person who I was in a spiritual contract with. But thankfully, it's let me off the hook on that, at least for the time being. But more so, what it kept redirecting me to was just this, like, I don't know, it was like I can't even recall any much of what it was saying, because I could never, like, I could never get it. I could never, like, the way I read for somebody else was not the way I read for myself. For myself, it's kind of like my biases, my ego will cover whatever I'm trying to not let myself see, and that was happening over and over again, but affected health kept coming out. So what I had found was I was feeling just so exhausted. Like, I'd have a little bit of energy, get some chore done, and then back down. And then I got my Mars return. So that's when Mars comes back around the sky to activate where Mars was when I was born, which is an energizing time. And I was like, wow, I have some energy to do some stuff. But even then, I would still have to, like, kind of rest afterwards. So it would be do stuff, rest. So today, I went and cleaned up at my son's apartment. And my body just started aching and hurting so bad while I was doing it. When I was done doing it, fine. So my body has really started to act up on this certain issue. And I did not know what the F this issue was. Like, obviously something. And it was a limiting belief. I knew that. So it turned out that it was something I logically knew. That's why I wasn't thinking of it as an issue. But it was something that I still had an emotional package to be present with. And what it was is, first of all, what clued me into it is watching a video by Teal Swan on chronic fatigue. So she says chronic fatigue is chronically doing what you don't want to do. And I thought, that's not really me, because I don't do anything I don't want to do. And then she went on to say, even when you're resting, your mind is doing it. And I was like, oh. And as she described some certain things, and she had someone up on the stage who had been suffering chronic fatigue, and she was just kind of reading this girl's shadow, but trying to poke it out in her, this girl. And this girl was, in a vibration where it was hard for her to, her defense mechanisms were up, we'll say that. But as she was doing this to this girl, I was getting it in myself, for myself. I was like, oh. And then she offered this little meditation where she offered to detach from the body. So I got into meditation and detached from my body, meaning I observed my body. Okay, that was very helpful. First of all, my body was very uncomfortable. I was like, okay, yeah, I get that. But, normally on a day-to-day basis, I don't give that much acknowledgement, because it's like, what am I going to do about it? I'm doing the best I can as far as taking care of myself. And so then I observed my emotional body. And as soon as I observed my emotional body, I felt it. I was like, oh. And what my emotional body's questions were, that it was trying to solve, that I didn't have to feel the pain of were, what can I do to make you love me? Tell me what to do so that I'm worth investing in. What can I do to be worthwhile to you? And I was like, damn. So under the level of my awareness was this kind of way of operating, which was with that agenda, those questions as the agenda. And this is why I had the operating system of doing shadow work. Because I was always looking for the thing that would make me better enough to be loved. Not consciously. Not consciously. I was not consciously saying I want to do this to be loved. Consciously, I was saying, you gotta do shadow work because why would I walk around with a boo-boo? That's what I was saying consciously. And then at some point, it was like I wouldn't even think about why I was doing it. It was just like, of course I would do it. That's what I do. And then at some point, I had to look and go, I mean, there's other things to do in life. Besides just like healing all the time. I created a life that allowed me to have the conversations that I wanted to have about healing. I only wanted to be around people who were doing their own healing work. All kinds of things were happening simply because I was operating under these longings for knowing what to do to make you love me. Not you, but my mother, and then filled in the blank with other people along the way, right? Object of my attention at the time. And what I had done as well was when I couldn't find the thing that would make you love me, I would just give up and write you off. Like, all right, can't do it. And that, although it's wise to finally give up if you can't please somebody, right? But it didn't solve the being the presence with the hurt part of me. The part of me that was hurt in the first place by that being the case, that my mother didn't have presence for me. That my mother, sometimes this would get me love and sometimes this would get me punished. It's like there's not really a lot of consistency on what I could do. And like she was not able to invest in me, and she was not able to, enjoy time with just me and her interacting or even having a conversation or anything like that. The only conversations we had were about her telling me to do a chore or telling me that I didn't do the chore good enough. Those were basically it. Or will I babysit? Or I will be babysitting. That was a question. Sorry to laugh. I'm just very tired. So what I realized is the chronic fatigue stemmed from, even when I was at rest, which was because I was allowing myself to rest a lot. And even though I didn't consciously feel guilty about resting at all, because I knew that if I wanted to go out and do things that were fun, but I just did not have the energy for it, so I had to rest. So I was like, oh, I must need the rest. But the reason I need the rest was because my body's actually like manifesting an illness of chronic fatigue, so that I would finally stop and be present with myself in my emotional body, which I had been instead just like constantly doing something, constantly transforming my shadow, constantly alchemizing, constantly helping others, constantly planning on my next project, constantly working on my next project, or doing a reading, or doing the dishes, or doing the laundry, or fixing my car, or sending helpful information to this person, or checking in on that person, or, just doing things that, if you now look at it, now that you know what my issue was, doing things that were based on getting you to love me. When I say you, I just mean someone, anyone. Like that little hurt part of me, just wanted love and wanted to be feeling like she was worthwhile, which I wasn't treating her like she was worthwhile, right? Because I was ignoring her. just like my mother did. But just like her mother did to her, you know, it was just a passed along thing. I'm not saying my mother's a terrible person, neither is my grandmother. Both just very busy women. You know, my mom worked while I was growing up, and my grandmother was a mother of 11. So these women were busy, and my mom kind of escaped into her work to keep herself feeling useful and vital and all that. So, you know, as far as like connection, that was not a part of my upbringing. And it's been work to learn about what connection is and how to get it and how to, you know, how to even want it, to be honest. Because a lot of my coping mechanism was to just decide I can't get it, so I don't want it. And then, like, if I did have it, like, even in my last relationship, it made me very anxious. I have anxious attachment. Fearful, anxious attachment. Yeah, anxious, avoidant attachment. Anyway, it's that attachment that either clings on or just says no thanks. Like, if you don't make me feel very effing safe, if you give me any hint that you're not completely for me, then no, you cannot be in my life. That's pretty much how I've operated. And if you are in my life, now I'm very anxious because I might lose you. And I'm not talking to, like, lose you to somebody else necessarily. I'm talking about, like, I might lose you to a car accident or, you know, just like something out of our control, some unforeseen accident. And that would keep me, like, low level worried. But it was because my whole, like, inside was going, what do I need to do to get the love? Now that I think I have the love might be taken away at any moment. And I'm pretty desperate. This hurt part of me is pretty desperate for this love. So, like, now that we are having this simulated love, what if we lose it? I'm really scared. So it's kind of insanity, right? If you saw my website, before I changed my website, I used to have a blurb on there about my own goal of working on learning about connection and building and learning connections. And so I know that this has been a major, major block to me having connections in my life, because I mean, how can I build a connection when not only do I either have to have your all in, and then I'll be nervous about losing you to death, or if you're not fully all in, you can't even be close. But also, I will not share any vulnerabilities. And I don't count on people. I don't share with people my struggles or anything like that. Yes, I'm sharing it with you, but I'm sharing it, for the most part, I share after the fact. After it's healed, you know? Like I'm not putting myself out there in a way that says, oh, I have this boo-boo, please don't poke it. No. I'm putting this out there knowing that I healed it and you can't poke me there. Because being vulnerable, first of all, it wouldn't be wise to do it on YouTube, so, you know, to a certain degree. But, like, being vulnerable is just something that I didn't allow for myself, because if you look at the relationship with my mother, me needing was not the way I got attention or anything. It was the way I got someone to feel annoyed by me. You know, it was annoying to others when I was needy or sick or trouble, or, you know, it's like they have enough to do, so I can't be putting burden on them by being needy or needing something, or, you know what I mean? So I would avoid that, because I had already decided that needing other people or having problems or being a problem would not get me love. Would not make people think I'm worthwhile. It would not make someone want to invest in me. And you could see that in my last boyfriend, the relationship. There was times when I actually had a physical attack against me, which put me with 2 black eyes and a big egg on my head, and had called him to kind of rescue me, take me from that scene. And he was annoyed. I don't know if I interrupted him that he was with another girl or why he was annoyed, but he was annoyed. There was no empathy or care or nothing. So you can see that's the manifestation of the energy I was in. I believed that if I was troubled, that the response would be that I would be a burden and unwanted. And that is what I manifested in a partner. So, for real, it's funny because I was just talking, right, leading up to this point, I was just talking about how if we don't tend to our emotional body, it will manifest into illness. And it's pretty much like I was speaking to myself. So, it's true. I can attest to it. And also, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, right? It's like, I had a good cry when I finally tapped in and was able to be present with that part of me. It was like, oh gosh, thank you. And you know what? Where I felt the energy leave, my solar plexus. My solar plexus, that's where you act from, action. Take action, and all my actions had been acting on behalf of that wound. So it was kind of serving as a block to my solar plexus, meaning if that action that I was about to take did not serve one of those things, which is getting me love, making me worthwhile, making me worth investing in. If it wasn't those things, then it wasn't prioritized at all, and I wasn't going to be able to put effort into it. So that left fun by the wayside. Even though fun is pretty much the best thing that you can do to attract and connect with people who want to spend time with you. So it's just that from that wounded version of me's perspective, who just had her mom and her dad and that wasn't happening, she was just too hurt, and her perspective of life was like them, and there wasn't anyone else, It was just my siblings. They were in the same boat as me. So we did have fun as kids sometimes, but this wounded part of me was being the priority, and so fun had fallen by the wayside for me lately. So it's very interesting, and so glad that I stumbled upon that chronic fatigue video by Teal Swan, because I had been feeling that fatigue chronically, and it got my attention to kind of look. And so her reflection was able to bring my attention to my own self. And what I did reveal is that I've been healing myself as a way to try to get love, which is absolutely the wrong reason to be healing self. It's not a good motivator. However, since it was the only motivator I had, and since I have achieved tremendous amounts of healing by doing so for that reason, I'm not going to knock it. I have again and again and again and again noticed that my own shadow is the thing that perpetuates me to heal. My own shadow is the key to healing. My own shadow is the perpetuator to healing. My own shadow is the transportation to my own healing. It's like with the poison comes the medicine, over and over and over again. So that's cool. And there you have it, guys. Me moving through a difficult one, glad to be on the other side of it, and honestly just helping my mind reprogram to only do the things that I love. Live for me, and checking in with me and my emotional body, and being more internal now than I was before, even more than before. So it feels nice. But yeah, I did get that pain cleaning my son's apartment today, and I was like, come on, I really need to do this, but I know that that's my body trying to say, hey, look, this is one of those things you don't really like doing. And yeah, I don't like doing it, but I like that it's done, and no one else is gonna do it. I have thought about paying someone to do it, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and we'll see how I feel next time the time comes.